Okay, are we going to count down from 10? Okay, I think we have started. I hope everybody can hear us. Um, my name is Marjan van Meerlo, and I'm the moderating of this Horizon Europe co-creation workshop on cluster 6. That's the cluster on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. And today we're going to look at 3 impacts of that. I would like to welcome all of you who are attending this session and who are helping us today with posting questions through the YouTube, because we understand that we also have people doing that. So thank you all to be here. Thank you to be part of this. And I'm experiencing a bit of network problems, but I think I'm still with you. Great. Last year we all saw each other in person, which was really nice. I saw a lot of you, I think, at Horizon Europe Village. This year we do it slightly different, like everything basically for the last half year. So this fits more nicely into the picture. But what doesn't change is that we still really want your feedback and really want your input to, together with you, design our new program for research and innovation. Together with me today from the Commission side are Caroline Potier, who will take you into the content of this session, and then Josefina and Vedak, who will be concluding for us. But all 3 of us, so including myself, Marjan van Meerlo, will go through the session and look at your questions and so on, and see how we can co-create a beautiful thing here. All of us are working for the Directorate Healthy Planet in RTD, Research and Innovation, but we also have colleagues joining us from Agri and some other DGs. We would like to ask you, if you have any specific question, to please use the Q&A function, which you should see in the tab. You can also use the chat function, but just be aware that if we're keeping an eye on the Q&A, we might not pick up your question in the chat function. So if there's something you really want us to answer to, please go to the Q&A and we will see if we can pick up your questions. Then I will take you to the first slide, just explaining quickly what we're going to do here today. So the objective of this meeting is, together with you, to reflect on 3 of the expected impacts and how to best achieve them through the first Horizon Europe work program. We're talking about the work program on the years 2021-2022. We're not there yet, but we're approaching quickly. We've done a lot since the last year, since we all saw each other at the Horizon Europe Village, and we really want to take you into what we have done over the last year and see how you can further help us in co-creating. We will do this with the Commission services engaged in Cluster 6. That is coming from different DGs. As said, research and innovation and agri are involved, but it's also environment. It's also DG Mare. It's also DG Devis, DG Grow, and many others. Climb, of course, and I'm sure I forget a couple, but Commission, we're doing this in a co-creative way together from the research innovation side, so stakeholders and
Well, I have lost Marian. Please tell me in the chat if you can hear me now. It seems if you can hear me, I can take over from here. Yes, perfect. What Marian was explaining that the agenda of today is the presentation of 3 of the proposed expected impacts for Cluster 6. In this session, we are going to discuss about biodiversity, the territorial aspects and communities, and governance impacts. Tomorrow, we will have another section for the other 3 impacts related to Cluster 6. We will have 5 minutes at the end to wrap up the conclusions, so feel free to share with us all your comments in the chat and also in the question and answer. We will have some questions for you for the discussion at the end as well. The conclusions, I think this is the conclusions of this session will be included in one of the iterations to build the work program of Cluster 6. Now I would like to leave the floor to Caroline Potier, who is the one who is going to present you these 3 impacts and the intervention logic that is behind. Floor is for you, Caroline.
Thank you, Josefina. First of all, to introduce what are the expected impacts, I should remind about what is Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe was decided by the co-legislators. We have a legal basis. This legal basis is not fully complete yet, as some of you might be aware, since we don't have a budget yet, but we are close to this. And then this legal basis is for a 7-year program. We have defined a draft strategic plan in co-creation with many of you probably last year, and we are continue working on it, and now work is advancing very quickly on this strategic plan. We expect that it will be adopted by the end of the year. The strategic plan defines the orientations for the first 4 years, and it is in the strategic plan that we have defined what we would like to achieve with the work program that we call expected impacts. So in the work program, the expected impacts will be reflected in destinations which will shape the work programs. Under these destinations, we will have the topics which will be supported, so to support the research and innovation activities, and the topics are expected to lead to outcomes, and the outcomes should lead to the impacts. This is a bit, in a nutshell, how the intervention logic should work. And today we would like to co-create with you this part, the link between the expected impacts and how the expected outcomes will lead to the impacts. This is a bit the problematic on which we would like to work with you today. So in cluster 6, we have a quite wide range of thematics. We have 7 intervention areas. This is because cluster 6 is the results from merging Societal Challenge 2 and Societal Challenge 5 under Horizon Europe, so it is quite wide. We have agriculture, we have biodiversity, environmental observation, circular systems, bio-based systems, food systems, and also seas, oceans, and the inland waters. And the 6 expected impacts are. So we are going to work on 3 of the 6 expected impact today. The other ones will be dealt with tomorrow. So first we will start with preservation and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. We will then deal with rural, coastal, peri-urban and urban areas developed in a sustainable, balanced and inclusive manner. And the last impact is about governance models enabling sustainability. For the preservation and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems, which is the guide of our cluster. Cluster 6 could be called the cluster of ecosystems. We have to start with the problem. There is no planet B. Everybody is starting to be aware about the current biodiversity crisis, which is very interlinked to climate change and human activities. So we know that the degradation of ecosystem services is severely affecting the fabric of life. Many sustainable development goals and high key targets risk not being reached. But we also know that solutions exist. We know that biodiversity should be mainstreamed in economic sectors, and we are aware that public policy making is very important in this area. We are aware that there are gaps in scientific knowledge, and an effective science policy interface is needed. So we have, I would say, this is one of the first impacts that was identified for this cluster, which the impact is here the full text is here. Biodiversity is back on a path to recovery, and ecosystems and their services are preserved and sustainably restored on land, inland water, and at sea through improved knowledge and innovation. And in the cluster, we have biodiversity it's mainstreamed, I would say, everywhere. But we have identified more specifically that we would need to work on understanding biodiversity decline. Still, a lot of work has still to be done. Ecosystems restoration and natural capital, managing biodiversity in primary production, transformative change, connecting research for better policies, biodiversity and health, and nature. I think I missed nature-based solutions, but it is very much connected to, embedded in another impact on the territorial development. The second impact on which we would like to work today is about sustainable, balanced, and inclusive development of rural, coastal, peri-urban, and urban areas. We are well aware that places and people matter to achieve the SDGs. Rural and coastal areas play a key role in managing and protecting natural resources. Urban areas have also a key role to play in sustainable production and consumption. They are notably a major demand driver. We need to better understand the challenges faced by these specific areas, and we need innovative ways to tailor policy response to those challenges. We think we also need to promote community-led innovations. So to achieve this impact, it is important to work on the economic development, also on education, services, the ways on how to reduce inequalities, how to better use nature-based solutions, also urban foods. So this is a quite complex and very important impact on which we also would like to have your feedback. And then the third impact on which we propose to work today is about innovative governance models, including monitoring, knowledge, tools, environmental observations, digital modeling, and forecasting capabilities. And the common feature of all this is the development of networks. Today, everything is connected. Governance has evolved a lot because of the networks, of the better sharing of information. So I would say that networks are the common feature of this impact. With this cluster, we would like to achieve transformative changes to be able to achieve the sustainable development goals. But these transformative changes require governance, appropriate governance. So with this area, we would work on experimenting new ways to govern the transition process and modernizing the governance. We think it is very important to make information and knowledge available and accessible to citizens, stakeholders. It is particularly important to take advantage of the use, uptake, and deployment of environmental observation, especially because it is a tool to assess the state of the planet, so it is extremely important in Cluster 6. Digital solutions can also bring a lot to develop appropriate governance models. And finally, the dissemination of knowledge and innovation through appropriate networks will be a key. We think in agriculture, in particular, about acquis, which is a great tool to disseminate knowledge to the farmers. So this is very broadly the presentation of the 3 impacts on which we propose to work today. So I would like to give the floor now to Marianne.
Yes, I think I'm back again. Can somebody please confirm you're hearing me? I think so. Yes, so we want to make sure that we get a lot of your input, so to ensure that the outcomes from R&I will actually bring these impacts. We want to see them preferably in the biodiversity area, in the territorial development, and in governments. However, if there's any other part of Cluster 6 which you're extremely interested in and want to say something on as well, we're definitely not going to deny any questions there. So the big thing for us is how to maximize the outcome for Cluster 6, in this case, particularly on the 3 elements. If you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A and we try to go through them. I've already saw that there was one on if the presentation will be shared. Caroline, can I ask you, do we have a possibility to share this presentation afterwards?
I think the simplest one will be putting it in the cluster 6 part of the RNI days. So
that would be good. Yeah.
In the Green Deal Hub, we have a space for documents. Probably not today, but if you come back tomorrow, you will probably see that and other presentations related to the subject.
Yeah. Then the other question we have here is, I agree with the community-led innovations. Will there be budget to help support participation of these community entities without requiring them to have a heavy administrative load? That's an interesting one. Caroline, would you be able to take that?
Yes, I think it is the intention to support these community-led innovations. Regarding the budget, yes, of course, it depends on how many topics and the size of the topics we dedicate to this. The heavy administrative load, we are always trying to limit the administrative burden to the applicants, but maybe the best way to do is also to participate to a consortia and which deals with the administrative workload. I don't know if
and
this
indeed,
really answers
what
the question. Marianne?
I think, yeah, well, I think yeah, I think that's the majority of it. The only thing I would like to add to it is that one of the important, let's say, a group to have also be part of the whole Horizon Europe is indeed these different communities. We are really looking into also connecting to citizens, also connecting to communities. But indeed, as Caroline said, the administrative load is there, and it will remain there for a part. So hopefully, these kind of things can be achieved also by being part of a consortium. Yeah. Then I have a question. What are the main strategies to dismiss the gap between R&I and market for the food sector regarding the neutral carbon EU strategy for 2050? Um, I don't know, Caroline, maybe we can invite one of our colleagues to answer it, which would be the best
Yes, maybe
colleague for this.
Isabelle. If Isabelle is attending, she could maybe provide an answer.
Caroline, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know how to give the floor to our colleagues dealing with food.
You mentioned the name of the person, and probably our technical. Pete, are you listening to us? Could you please give the floor to
Either
one of
to
our?
Isabelle de Froidmont or to Karen Fabry.
Otherwise, these questions are published in the Q&A, and I encourage our colleagues from the Commission and the executive agencies to answer under the Q&A. All published questions can be answered by you.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Then, does R&D institutes have to be inside this cluster 6, or cluster is the manage of these EU funds? Thank you. Caroline, do you want to answer that? I can also give it a try.
Yes, maybe Marianne, you can please answer.
Okay, so the cluster. Yep, I will give it a try. If I get disconnected, please take over. So the cluster is actually a way in which the Horizon Europe program is built up. That means you don't have to be in a specific cluster. You basically go to the topics, and that is where you are supposed to look for whatever you can participate in. The cluster for us is a way to sort of build up the program as we did in Horizon 2020, for instance, with the societal challenges. So it's divided, the whole part of pillar, I have to say it correctly, pillar 2 is divided in six different clusters, and each of the clusters target a specific grand challenge. But in any case, you don't have to be specifically part of a specific cluster to be able to participate in the program. Caroline, do you have anything to add?
On this specific question, maybe the cluster is just, I would say, a bit a technocratic entity. And if you are a research institute, you would be able to apply to different clusters. It's you're not obliged to belong to one cluster. It's not a question, I would
No,
say.
indeed. Then, if I go to the next question of Nicolas Bade, do we have the monitoring and information necessary to monitor impact on biodiversity? If yes, how will it be used and integrated? If not, what do you think we need? Well, Josefina, that's one for you.
Is my mic on? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, we don't have the monitoring and the information yet. We have a number of things, but it's true that they are not completely connected. In Cluster 6, in the Horizon Europe, and also basically through the partnership on biodiversity, which has another session dedicated to partnerships tomorrow. we are going to try to help this monitoring, but also to connect with the new knowledge center on biodiversity that is going to be created, to that wants to be a one-stop shop for everything regarding monitoring. And for the first time, we are connecting research with the users of this research. Actually, the idea is to make a strategic research agenda for biodiversity that takes into account the needs of the member states, for example, that need to report on monitoring. The objective is to serve the new EU biodiversity strategy for 2030. And for that, yes, we need more monitoring. We need interconnected, fair data. We will need this new knowledge center, and we are also ready to put in the work program some topics that are helping the making this new data not only on species status but also on ecosystems and ecosystem condition level to build these monitoring needs. Stay tuned.
Okay, thank you for that, Josefina. I think I was kicked out, but I'm back in time. Um, I'm looking at the next question. I'm a researcher at a research center near Rome, animal production and aquaculture. Does my research center, I guess that would be fit inside cluster 6? Um, it definitely aquaculture is included. Josefina, you've already answered this. Indeed, within the scope of cluster 6, it's definitely also targeted to animal production and aquaculture. However, also here, it's basically a bit of the same answer as we gave before. We are with many clusters, so it could be that even if it's not in cluster 6, there's still a topic somewhere else which would also be fit for your research center. So my suggestion would be that once the program is out, to please look carefully at cluster 6, because that seems to be the sort of emphasis for what you're working on. So this is to Cinzia Marcicelli. But also don't shy away from looking at the other parts, because it's a complementary and broad program with many things popping up where it's just a bit of the emphasis, which is it's different. Okay. Then the next one from Arandi Clay Rodrigo. Is it mandatory to make a link between a cluster and a mission? In this case, for example, making the link with the mission related to soil. I don't know. Maybe we could give the
Do you
floor.
want me
Caroline,
to
could we?
take this?
Well, if you can, yes. And otherwise, we see if we can invite one of our colleagues from DG Agri.
Okay. First, it's not mandatory to make a link between a cluster and a mission. We have cross-cutting missions, such as the mission on climate adaptation. So, but it's very important that clusters work in complementarity with the missions.
Yeah, so this is just to complement Caroline. This is not only the case, of course, for the soil mission, because if you look to the broad scope of cluster 6 and also the other clusters, it's actually related to more missions, since the whole idea behind the missions is also to have a broad spectrum. But most particularly, and maybe Josefina, you can say a little bit more about it. We also have the one for biodiversity, for instance, connected to this cluster. You want to say a couple of words on that, Josefina?
You're talking about the
On the
partnership?
biodiversity
Sorry, I was
partnership.
answering questions. The question was particularly to missions. There are 4 missions related to
I'm not
biodiversity,
sure
but
if
for the
Josefina is connected.
oh,
So you see why research and innovation keeps on being necessary to solve these kind of issues.
um, I have the impression that I am. I still hear you all. Anyway, I can't.
No, that's fine. I was talking about the great. Thank you.
I think the biodiversity partnership is going to be a very important tool to connect all the research that is being done in Europe at the level of the member states, regions, and also at the level of European research. But I think we have a lot of other very interesting questions here. There is a session on partnerships tomorrow.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Then indeed, I immediately go to the next question. So I have one of James Dickey. When are cold topics expected to begin being released for Cluster 6? Caroline, that should be your question.
Thank you, Marianne. The program is expected to be adopted first quarter of 2021. So I guess the topics, the publication of the course will be starting during the summer, but I'm not very experienced on this.
Well, the topics in the work program are now under discussion with the program committee, representatives from the member states, and we will expect them to be published in March. But until then, there will be a number of iterations. So don't trust any version that you start to see leaked in the internet. Marianne, I can't hear
Yes.
you.
No, I'm back. I'm just back again. Like I said, innovation is very important for everything in current life, including connection issues. But I think it's just because we all want to participate so badly. So that's a positive spin to it. You can hear me now, right, Josefina? Okay, great. Okay, so then I'm guessing we don't go so quick as that we've answered the next question yet. So how important would be the commercialization and exploitation of results? I don't know, Caroline, do you want to give an answer to this? I can complement if you want. So it's the question of Peter Mogioroshi. Mogioroshi.
Sorry, I was muted. The dissemination and exploitation of results will be key to achieve the impacts, because maybe coming back to the intervention logic on which we intended to exchange, we don't think we would be able to reach any impact if we don't exploit the outcomes of research and innovation. And maybe Marianne, you can complement.
I want to, but I don't know if you can hear me right now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Marianne.
But if you don't speak, we don't hear you.
No, I know. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now or still not?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you very well, Marianne.
Great.
In
So
the
happy about that.
meantime,
No, oh, I was just going to say it's basically what Caroline said. Indeed, we don't only need excellence in the Horizon Europe program, we definitely also need that, but we also need impact. And specifically in this session, which is of course targeting impact, commercialization and exportation is very important. Again, as we do in Horizon 2020, we will work with different calls for proposal on different kind of actions. So the structure of research and innovation action and innovation actions will most likely return, and that means that would also give you a direction for where it is more important. Okay, sorry, Josephine, I interrupted you.
I actually would like to grab the attention, direct the attention to the slide that we are watching now. This is a workshop, so I would like to address again these questions to the audience, to our participants, on the intervention logic. Maybe we can show again this intervention logic slide. We are focused on the impacts now, but when we publish the topics, the only thing that we see are the expected outcomes. So the outcomes of the projects, the science. How the question is, how can we ensure that the outcomes of our research projects are actually serving the expected impacts, the three impacts that we mentioned: biodiversity, the development of communities in rural and coastal areas, and better models for governance for the sustainable transition. I would like to ask people to write in the chat their views. We're going to copy this chat. We're going to comment some of them now online, but we will keep all these inputs, because this is supposed to be a co-creation session, is much more difficult than we can do it in a room. And I give back to you the floor. So that would be my question, if I can show it again, or our question on the intervention logic. How do we ensure that the outcomes from research and innovation will bring the impacts that we want? Because often this is disconnected in the three areas. And related to that, you can also answer, how do we maximize the outcomes? Maybe Marian, you can comment some of the answers. Or Caroline?
Yes, I'm looking at the chat, and we have some reactions like, can results of projects on similar topics be made easy to find all in one place? Is there some sort of index? For example, suppose I want to see all rural digital project results. Yes, I think now we have a very good tool on Horizon 2020, where if you get a bit familiar, you can find the results of the projects. This is always developing. Marianne or Josefina, maybe you... I think it's a very good approach to be able to find the results in one place.
Yeah, I'm finally back. Sorry, it's not that I don't want to comment if I'm not speaking. It's just because, yeah, the system keeps giving me problems. But Josefina, please go first.
Do you mean Cordis? We have a number of tools to ensure that the results are disseminated, but it depends also, sectorial. In the case of biodiversity, for example, we have realized that all this knowledge needs to be hubbed somehow in this new biodiversity knowledge center. For other areas, as Earth observation, probably Marian can comment.
Yeah, so for Earth observation, I'm sorry, I think I'm out again, right?
No, you're in.
No, you're right. You're here. You're with us.
Marian, I think you
can't hear me, can you?
We can't hear you perfectly. Probably your problem is that you don't hear yourself.
Really? Okay, great. Okay, it looks like I wasn't able to take the floor. Yeah, so for Earth and environmental observation, I think you were talking about tools, because I was briefly disconnected. But in terms of tools, we know we have many tools around. One of the major things there is actually to see how we can do a better uptake and a better deployment of what is actually there. So the topics we are now thinking of putting in this kind of context will actually be ones where we want to build on existing knowledge and platforms, and see how we can ensure there's a better uptake, and how we can integrate what we have with what is new or what is from a different domain. So this for us will be the main focus. That also connects back to the earlier question on the impacts and how important that is, because if we have already outcomes from the previous Horizon programs or framework programs, so also FP7 of course, and we can build on that, then we make good use of the funding we have. So for us, this is quite important on the one hand to ensure the uptake, and on the other hand to not deny basically what is already there. I don't know if that's the exact answer to the question, but at least it will give you some more information. There is at least one of the chat is going quickly, but there is at least one on the maximizing outcomes of impacts. Part of the challenge is that impacts are long-term and outcomes of projects are time-bound to the project lifetime. Maybe projects that assess the impacts of projects may help. Okay, so it's now moving upstairs. I go upstairs. Maybe projects that assess the impacts of projects may help, or funds that allow to come back to analyzing the longer term effects of the projects later on. Yeah, but this is an internal question on assessing the impacts of the projects. This is the case, of course.
In the case of biodiversity, for example, we have dedicated science policy. It's a new thing. We want to fund project that will create this science policy, specifically to use these outcomes to inform policies. But it can be used. I mean, if the thing works, it's basically trying to not only look back at the outcomes and inject them into the needs, but even to look forward to new projects, to put them together with the policy needs or society, or I don't know, end users. So these results are already produced in collaboration with the stakeholder or the user that are going to use this outcome. This is the only way they're going to be uptaken. If the scientific community is separated from the public or policymakers or whoever who is going to use this knowledge, it will keep being published in obscure or brilliant scientific journals, and it won't be useful. So we are going to have these pilot projects, and we expect to have more in future editions of the work program. Can you see other answers, other comments? For example, there is one on the knowledge gaps.
Yeah, so I see.
We have said that
yeah,
there
indeed,
are
this is the one I wanted to take up. Yeah, no, indeed, Josephine, we're looking at the same question of Nicolas Auguet. One comment and one question. As you said, there's some knowledge gaps that have to be tackled. So it's really important to have each year several RIA topics, and not only mainly IA and CSA, so CSA Coordination Support Action, in Cluster 6, and also in other clusters in Pillar 2, which allow on low TRLs and fundamental research. And the question, I understood that in Pillar 3, the Pathfinder projects also fed from Horizon 2020 and ERC POC projects will be followed up by project officers. Will this be the case for the project, especially at the low TRL funded within Cluster 6? This could be a way to ensure impacts. On the first part of this, yes, we are very much looking into a balanced approach with having RIA, IA, and CSA. So this, I understand your comment, and we very much want to indeed approach it that way. On the second part, I'm less familiar with Pillar 3. Caroline or Josefina, can one of you give some comments on this?
Yes, we'll try to find a balance between all.
I don't know, maybe we have to save this one for a moment, since the people in this session are mostly working in Pillar 2, and as you know, it's quite a large program. But to answer to the low TRL, yes, they will also be funded within Cluster 6. Yeah. Okay, are we ready for another question? Question or comment in this case?
Come back, Marianne. Maybe we could come back to our intervention logic.
Yeah, please.
Because it would be really, it is the opportunity for you to express what you think. How should we shape the work program? Is this structure according to impacts valid? It's very important for us. This is I would say the last opportunity because it's a 2:45. So please give some feedback on the intervention logic. And about the precise questions which are on the chat.
I can see something on the chat on a very nice answer to maximizing outcomes, and indeed it goes. It summarizes some of the interventions that I can see here. It is about involving the end user and the whole research and innovation chain in the
Maybe
development
Caroline,
of the program.
the question of
Yeah, I think we have a delay, Marian. And give the ownership to specific user groups. That this is important, and this is also related to citizen science. I think we are moving actually to the conclusions. Some of the giving an overview to all these comments and all these questions that give us actually a lot of food for thought. I would think that one of the themes that come back is this to involve the users in the preparation and the development of the program. And actually, this has been the ethos of Horizon Europe. We have been discussing for more than 1 year already on the all different levels, and we also have the missions and the partnerships that have also an extra involvement of stakeholders and citizens. We shouldn't forget that we want also to use citizen science as much as possible, and not only taking the data from citizens, but involving them in this co-creation and co-design of research and innovation for the future. And on the other hand, this needs to be useful for the policies and for the achievement of the targets that we have, and of course to achieve the transformation of this society. I think that that should be the conclusion of this session. If there is something else, and actually the last thing that I just saw in the chat is that the ultimate impact would be changing the behavior of citizens, of consumers, and try to um, to do something with the sick value chains that we have nowadays, so we can particularly in biodiversity, but in some other systems like food systems, to try to make it as sustainable as possible. Thank you very much. I think we need to close. I see that Marian's connection fell. Caroline, would you like to say a few words to say goodbye?
Yes, I would like to thank you all for this active participation. For us, it's something new to be involved in such a co-creation session online. So we are experimenting this tool, and I think it's very lively. So we will, of course, keep all your comments and questions and provide answers. And yes, thank you very much. This was very useful for us to continue to shape the first work program of Horizon Europe Cluster 6. Thank you very much and goodbye.
thank
Goodbye.
you so much.
And thanks to
Bye
Mardu
bye.
Boncel, who summarizes very well. Ensure that all actors are involved in the project from beginning to the end.
For sure. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.